Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Common Ground's live stream speaker series. I'm Leslie Goldman, and on behalf of the entire Common Ground team, I'm delighted to see that so many of you have tuned into this virtual event. For those of you who may not be familiar with our organization, the Common Ground Speaker Series is a parent education consortium that strives to foster shared conversations, a sense of common purpose, and stronger families and communities. This goal has never been more important than it is today. This evening, we're honored to have Dave Evans, co-founder of the Stanford Design Lab, and Kathy Davies, the managing director of the lab, join us to talk about designing your family life, reframing college and your kids. An integral part of this conversation will include a question and answer session after their remarks. Please feel free to utilize the Q&A for questions that arise, and we'll do our best to take as many questions during the Q&A as time allows. Also, for your convenience, our partner, Books Inc., is offering the book, Designing Your Life, How to Build a Well-Lived, Joyful Life, through the link on the events page of the Common Ground website. Let me get the evening started by introducing Kathy and Dave. Kathy Davies is an engineer and the managing director of the Stanford Life Design Lab, leading a team of fellows who teach the popular courses, Designing Your Life, Designing Your Stanford, and Designing the Professional to hundreds of undergraduate and graduate students each year. Kathy began at Stanford teaching product design and later became a full-time lecturer in mechanical engineering and a fellow at the Life Design Lab. Kathy spent the first 20 years of her career leading technical teams on such diverse products as the world's first internet radio and heart surgery tools. Her ideation and technical problem-solving chops earned her 5 patents. Her DYL team has trained 150 universities globally to use the life design processes. Kathy founded and leads DYL Consulting, and beyond Stanford, consults with universities and tech companies to bring product design tools and life design practices to their teams. Dave Evans has a long history in innovation. He was part of Apple in the early days, where he led the first mouse team and introduced laser printing to the masses. Next, he was a co-founder of Electronic Arts and became the company's first VP of talent. After 15 successful years as a high-tech exec, Dave went out on his own as a management consultant, assisting both startups and multinationals in strategy, marketing, and corporate and culture formation. Along the way, Dave discovered the real passion he has is to help people discern and build the life they really want. That led Dave to co-found the Stanford Life Design Lab with Bill Burnett in 2007, with the mission of applying the innovation principles of design thinking to the wicked problem of designing your life. That Life Design Lab has enjoyed great success at Stanford and is now expanding broadly across higher education. Bill and Dave's 2016 book, Designing Your Life, How to Build a Well-Lived and Joyful Life, is a New York Times #1 bestseller, available in 23 languages worldwide. Welcome, Kathy and Dave, to Common Ground. We are delighted to have you both here this evening.
Leslie, thanks. It's great to be here. So, of course, what is life without PowerPoint? My entire life is lived through PowerPoint. So we're going to do a little screen sharing here, and Kathy and I are going to be sharing some ideas with you and then having a chance to talk together about the questions that are on your mind. Okay, so as we already pointed out, we're here to talk about these things. In particular, we're going to try to help you reframe how you think about college by thinking like a designer and curating your curiosity. Now, many of you are not necessarily, parents or educators of college students just yet. And of course, our full-time job these days is to be college educators. Why are we talking just about college? Well, our experience has been that, if you want to be moving into your adult reality with the life that is well lived and joyful for you, that thing, if you're going to go through college, that's a really big formative thing. And frankly, the way we think about college has a huge effect on the way people parent. Now, actually, literally, you may have some background noise because my 9th grandchild, who was born 8 weeks ago, is around the corner, right behind that video screen. So, I've got lots of kids, but there are about 22 people in my immediate family. And at every single age, the way you think about this college thing, the way you think about what life is about, the way you think about what it means to be a joyful person infects the way you handle talking with those people in a variety of ages. So We're going to go down that pathway and hopefully it'll be interesting. So first of all, again, who are these people? Now, Leslie summarized, we teach 3 primary courses: designing your life to juniors and seniors, figuring out what to do after graduation; designing your Stanford to freshmen and sophomores, trying to figure out how to go to school; and then designing the professional to the PhDs and some of the master's students. How do I configure myself before I go into the professional world? And in the process, we teach like 15 going on 20% of all the students at Stanford, depending on which particular quarter. And frankly, we don't know how many students we teach because a lot of kids who haven't got time to take the course teach it on the side in the gray zone that never gets registered for. We don't even know how many people have actually learned the stuff we've taught them. Now, why are all these really smart Stanford kids showing up to the remedial class on how to figure out what to do with yourself? Well, here's the thing. As user-centered designers, we always ask the user, hey, what's on your mind? So here's a Stanford student, who is asking the question, what are you going to do with your life after college? And here's the interesting answer to that question. And I'm pretty sure the video is coming through, but somebody flag me real quick if the sound is not coming across.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I was going to go to med school, but some grades changed that. I think I'm going to go to law school.
I have no idea.
Okay, now first of all, it's very easy to think, oh, they just found the 12 clueless kids at Stanford to sell the course and make it look relevant. No, actually, let me make it even worse. Do you want to know where we got this video? We got this video at a career fair. These are the graduating seniors who are going to go right around the corner, that little blank wall where you see the young blonde man right there standing. He's going to walk around that corner, and he's going to walk up and go, hi, I've always wanted to be a product manager at Google. I can't wait to talk to you. And what he really thinks is, I have no idea. Because here's the deal. At Stanford, we don't teach you life. To be Stanford, you got to be really smart, but you don't have to be really clear. And we teach you how to learn, computer science or anthropology, but we don't teach you life. So if you want to be clear and have a life, we don't teach that. Well, at least we didn't until now. So that means, hey, Bill, we got a problem 14 years ago. Let's form this lab with the mission of applying the innovation principles of design thinking to the wicked problem of designing your life at and after college. That's Kathy's full-time job now that I'm semi-retired. Well, what does that really mean? That's a good pedagogical framework, but what it really means is we're the people who teach that class to help you figure out what you want to be when you grow up. People can go, oh, I could really use that class. Actually, the first thing we do is reframe it like, no, that's a terrible idea because you don't want to grow. Who wants to grow up anyway? I mean, you want to keep growing. I'm 68, 70 years old, got 9 grandchildren. I'm not done. So we really teach the courses that help you keep figuring out what you want to be next, because we always want to grow into the next thing, right? And we say it that way, then everybody goes, ooh, can I take the class? And we started teaching this class and everybody goes, ooh, can I take the class too? And the answer was no for years. And then Bill says, Dave, we have to teach the other people. I know, let's write a book. So we write this book, and then what happens to the book? Oh my God, to my great surprise, it becomes this huge bestseller, 600,000 copies, 23 languages. And then Kathy starts teaching other colleges. And I think we're up to like 200 now, right, Kathy? 200 plus, the people who are serving over 1 million students, well over 1 million students worldwide in Australia, China, Thailand, the UK, and then here comes Common Ground going, hey, we got to talk to you guys. Well, what's that all about? I mean, there are 1,500 people on this webinar. What the heck? Some of you got shoved over to Facebook because we ran out of room on Zoom. I mean, why is this happening? Well, here's the deal. People are stuck. No cows were harmed making the slide. And they're particularly stuck on what we call dysfunctional beliefs, or actually psychology calls dysfunctional beliefs, ideas that are flat untrue or just not very helpful. And particularly when you talk about this college thing, oh man, we got tons of them. Let me give you a couple. First of all, we talk in our Design Your Stanford course, here incoming freshmen, hey, how do I go to college? And here's the thing, imagine many of you on the call, you were 18 once, most of you went to college. And remember when you got in, oh, hey, I'm going to go to, Reed College, I'm going to Stanford, I'm going to, OSU, whatever, it's great. And when you run around telling people I'm going to college, what do the grownups tell you? Well, what are you going to major in, blah, blah, blah. And one thing we hear worldwide over and over again is the adults say, oh, that's great. You're going to college. It's so wonderful. These 4 years are the best years of your life. And we've heard from like 97% of our students worldwide, they hear that line. Isn't that wonderful? The 4 best years of your life. And instantly in the 18-year-old brain, this image comes up. Oh my God. These are the 4 best years of my life. I peak at 20 and it's downhill from then on. And how old are the people who say, these are the 4 best years of your life? They're 40, 50, 70 years old. They must know they've been on the downward slide for 30 years. That's a nightmare. It terrifies them. Don't ever say that again. Never, ever again say, these are the 4 best years of your life. How about we draw this curve instead? These are 4 really interesting years. They're kind of unique, but hey, it gets so much better after that. That's the kind of life we want to teach you how to have. Now, that's just one dysfunctional belief, thinking right off the bat, college is the best thing ever. No, it's good, but it's followed by even better. Another huge problem is you got to go to the top school. Now, it's hard for us to say that because we go to a top school, but here are a whole bunch of really cool schools people want to get into. In fact, they want to get into so bad they're willing to cheat to get there. So, not that long ago, we had this huge scandal. For $4 million, you can bribe the Stanford sailing coach and get in, without the right SAT scores. Okay, that's a nightmare. Here's the problem. Our great colleagues over in the Ed School, Denise Pope runs a thing called Challenge Success. Many of you probably know about it. A wonderful organization talks about what's an effective definition of college, pre-college success for junior highs and senior high kids. And what they've actually come up with is a study around the correlation between success in life, success in college, and where you go to school. And guess what? Doesn't matter where you go.
Are you stressed about the college admissions process? We've heard from over 100,000 high school students that applying to college can be a huge source of stress for them and their parents. Many students have a fit over getting into college because they think that attending the most highly ranked or most selective schools is the key to future success and happiness. But an extensive review of literature on college outcomes conducted by Challenge Success actually shows that college rankings are problematic and are not the best indicator of a school's quality. In fact, the research shows that what students do in college may matter more than which college they go to. Finding a college that fits you and where you can be highly engaged is a better predictor of long-term outcomes like student learning, job satisfaction, well-being, and even future income than going to a highly ranked school. What does this mean for high school students applying to colleges? Broaden your gaze and consider looking beyond rankings in the college search process. Look for a school where you can participate fully in academic, civic, and social life to thrive during the college years and beyond. It's not necessarily the college that makes the difference. It's you and what you do while you're there. To learn more, download the Challenge Success White Paper, A Fit Over Rankings: Why College Engagement Matters More Than Selectivity.
So we just couldn't agree more with that. It turns out how you go to college matters a ton more than where you go to college. Going to, Cal State Long Beach well beats the pants off going to Harvard poorly. It's all about engagement. Now, moving along quickly so I don't leave Kathy too little time. Another favorite dysfunctional belief, here's a couple of college students at Stanford literally standing on the mall and they're chatting away and one person says, hey, what are you majoring in? Pretty normal question. I'm majoring in anthropology with a minor in creative writing. And you all know the next question, what are you going to do with that? Here's the problem. Why is that a dysfunctional belief? Questions really matter. Questions have belief systems. And before you decide a question deserves to judge or organize your life, you better decide that you believe its belief system. What are you going to do with that? Believe. It believes your major determines your future life. 80% of college graduates in less than 10 years from graduation are working outside their field of major study. Now, there's literally like 1,500 people here. I can't do a hand raise. I can't do this online. But if we were in a big theater, I would say quickly, raise your hand if you're still doing what you were studying when you were 19 years old. And all 4 of you can get together in the lobby and have a meeting. So this question, what are you going to do with that? And by the way, how many majors are there? Stanford has 74. There are 7.3 billion people in the world. Do 7.3 billion people do more than 74 things? Duh, of course they do. This is a stupid question. It's dysfunctional. Don't ask it anymore. Number 2, what's your passion? Or as we say in Silicon Valley, what's your passion? Are you passionate about this? Do you really love AI or whatever it is you're doing? Here's the problem with passion. 8 out of 10 people answer the passion question with either Gosh, I don't know yet, Dave. I haven't found one. I hope I do. Or I've got a bunch. Which one did you want to hear about first? Either one of those people, passion is not an organizing principle in their lives. And the large majority of people who ever report having lived passionately, the passion was the outcome of the well-lived life, not the starting place. This question believes everybody has one. You know it before you've even started. It's available to everybody. And if you find it, they'll pay you well for it. None of those is true. So it's a really bad dysfunctional belief. Don't get me started. So in light of all these dysfunctional beliefs, now what do? These are very popular ideas. Well, first of all, learn how to go to college, not just how to get in, by becoming a wayfinder, not a navigator, calibrating your compass, and cracking the success code. Now, all of these actually apply to all ages, particularly the first two. And in order to understand how these things really work, again, we're back to think like a designer. Oh, we need to build a platform for all this to stand on. Kathy, what's this design stuff all about?
So we do need to think like a designer. And so that means we might be curious about what is design thinking. Now, some of you here in the Silicon Valley spend a lot of time thinking about what design thinking is. It's become a very popular innovation strategy, developing goods and services all over the world. However, there are many wonderful ways to solve problems. And so I first want to differentiate what design thinking is not. So engineering thinking, I'm an engineer, a great way to solve problems. Engineering thinking is fantastic for solving bounded problems that are rooted in the laws of physics. I love these kinds of problems. If you're going to build a bridge, you can look at bridges that have been built before. You can look at the equations they use, the truss structures, the length of the bridge, the materials, the number of cars that the bridge will carry. And you would be foolish not to use all of that information to build a bridge like the one that worked before. And once that bridge is built, it stays built. It doesn't wake up in the morning and think to itself like, oh, hey, I don't want to be a bridge anymore. It's a tame problem. And for this kind of problem, engineering thinking is absolutely appropriate. So please use it. Some of you are business folks. You're thinking about return on investment, key performance indicators. You have criterion that you are optimizing for. And that process of optimizing your way forward, absolutely a valid way of thinking. Some of you are researchers. You are gathering large amounts of statistically significant data to prove or disprove hypotheses. You're thinking about the trends, about generalizing those trends to some sort of larger conclusion. All of these things, very valid ways of thinking. But sometimes there's not an equation. When we're thinking about getting into college and taking care of our lives, wouldn't it be nice if there was an equation? But there isn't. We might not even know what we're optimizing for. Just as Dave said, some people are thinking about optimizing for top colleges. Maybe we should be optimizing for fit. I don't know. And then we could gather all kinds of data about the general situation, but we're actually thinking about maybe an N of one, our kid, our family. And so in cases like this, we need to do something different. We need to build our way forward. And for this reason, design thinking is a particularly good tool, because design thinking is about working on wicked problems, like we said before. These are the problems that can't be solved with a check, that change even as you work on them. You don't even know what you're solving for. You aren't even sure when you get there whether this is it. Design thinking is an iterative process. So let's talk about that process. Now, human-centered design has been around for a long time, 50, 100, more than that, many years, and Stanford did not invent it. However, we did come up with some lovely hexagons to help us remember this process, and so I'm going to use these to explain this process. This is the process that people use to develop goods and services all over the world. They start with empathy. Who are the people they're designing for? What is it that they want? What do they value? What do they need? What's going on in their lives? We talk to those people, we watch them, we figure out, hey, what is it that matters to them? And this is a divergent process. We gather data with an open mind. Then, having gathered that data, we need to converge to some defined problem. This is that second step, define. Now, I will say that when people picture design thinking, maybe you picture this. You picture like a wall of Post-its. Woo, I've got like 1,000 ideas. Fantastic. But if you are ideating around the wrong question, those ideas are useless. Define does not get the love that it deserves. This define step, this converging is critical. Choosing and scoping a problem then allows you to move successfully to the next step, which is ideate, that generation of Post-its. And that generation of ideas is all about going broad, coming up with as many ideas as possible, coming up with crazy ideas that break you out of the box that you may have been stuck in, that allow you to get to innovation. After you've diverged, you've gone broad, now it's time again to converge. We need to take one of those ideas and build it out a little bit further to create a prototype. We want to quickly and cheaply and easily figure out, is this idea worth anything? Should I invest more resources? And that's prototyping. We take that prototype that we've built back to the people that we were designing for, and we test it. Hey, is this what you had in mind? Are we on to something here? Should we go further? Sometimes the answer is yes, and then you celebrate and form $1 million company. But sometimes the answer is no, you didn't understand our needs at all. In fact, you need to come back and talk to us some more. Or maybe you realize, hey, we just really didn't define that problem well. We're trying to be all things for all people. Or maybe you realize as you build your prototype, this isn't really representing the idea we had. And so although this process looks linear, it's kind of bumpy here because this is iterative and you can go from any hexagon to any other. Over and over, you try to develop a product that will work, and it often takes multiple tries. Now, with life design, when we're thinking about things like getting into college, how do we become good parents, how do we survive out there in the world, we add a step at the beginning, a step 0, if you will, and that's accept. Because we're starting right here and right now. The past is gone. The future is unknown, not yet built. And so we have to start right here where we are. And sometimes we're ready to work on a problem. Sometimes we're not. If we're not ready, all the process in the world won't help us because you can't solve a problem you're not willing to have. And so we start with accept. Now, more important than probably that whole process is really the way designers think. Dave said, we got to think like a designer. And designers have a particular culture of mindsets. We collaborate radically with other people different from ourselves. Because if we're like that cow stuck on the fence and we're talking to people just like ourselves, what kind of ideas do you think they have? Yeah, they have the same ideas we have. So, they could join us there on the fence. That, is kind of some nice thing about, hey, we're here stuck together. That feels sometimes, comforting that we're not alone. But the fact of the matter is, if we want to get unstuck, we need new ideas and new perspectives. And it's people who are different from us who are going to have those ideas. Reframing. We're going to do some of that tonight. And in fact, Dave already did some of that. How do we look at problems from a different perspective? How do we see things from a different angle and so that we have more room to solve? This is closely linked to that define step. How do you define the problem so that you can come up with something that'll get you unstuck? Curiosity. Curiosity is probably the foundational element of this entire process. And that's why we're going to spend a bunch of time talking about it in a minute. Most of you here on this call are parents or work with kids. And that means you may have, at some point in your life, followed around an 18-month-old as they explore the world. When I was following my kids around, my daughter, Marianne, she walked straight into the ocean. I mean, just no filter, no idea, curious as hell, just was, hey, I'm just going to go check this out. Terrifying as a parent, but kind of amazing when you think about it. Those kids are having a full body adventure. Everything is new. Their mind is open. And so that openness allows them to see things in entirely new ways. And so we invite you to be deeply curious, to be like a child, to be open and discard any preconceived notions. Mindfulness of process. We showed you that process because the fact of the matter is, this world is really confusing and ambiguous and frankly kind of scary sometimes. Right now, this year, COVID, insane. The other things that are happening, on Capitol Hill, also really disturbing for some of us. And so it's nice to have a process to ground us. If we have a structure and we know where we are in that structure, then we can know what the appropriate next step to take is. And that can be very comforting. Ideas are cheap. I mentioned all those Post-its. If we don't take those ideas into action, we don't have the opportunity to learn. Dave and I will joke, did you do a brainstorm? Yes, we did a brainstorm. What did you do with it? What did they do with it? Well, they took a picture of it. Oh, fantastic. Great. Well, you take that picture, you put it in your cell phone. That's where ideas go to die. Where actual work happens is in the world. And so we have a bias to action as designers. And then finally, storytelling. Because the stories that we have been told, the stories that we tell to our kids, the questions we ask, that defines the space in which we're working. That defines the constraints and assumptions with which we will ideate. And so we like to talk a lot about really understanding our own stories, and then also thinking about how we craft our stories. Because as we craft our stories, we understand more clearly what we think, and we also are able to connect with others who might create opportunities with us. So what are we supposed to do with all that? Well, this is all deeply related, this idea of being a wayfinder, not just a navigator. And these two things are different. When you're navigating, you can plug the end in mind into your GPS, the terrain, and you'll plot a track right to it. Fantastic. But wayfinding is a little different because often we don't know the end in mind. And we may not know the terrain between here and there. And in fact, the terrain may shift right while we're working on it. Does this sound a little familiar, like when I was talking about wicked problems? Yeah, because life is constantly shifting. And so we're often thinking about dysfunctional beliefs when we talk to our students. And I'm going to put down my clicker for a hot second. My students come into my office hours and they say, I'm so confused. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. I feel like I should be able to figure out what my goal is and just go there. But I don't know what this is. And I feel like I'm behind. Everyone else knows what's going on. And then the next student comes in and they say the exact same thing. And in fact, I kind of want to be like, everybody, just come on in here all together. Like none of you know what you're doing. And there's nothing wrong with that, because the reality is it's never a straight line. If you talk to anyone who's done anything in the world, they'll tell you, yeah, I thought I was going to do this thing. And then I talked to this person. And then I went over here. And then I had this internship. And then I did this job. And then I went back over here because I realized I didn't want that thing. And all of a sudden, I ended up here, which I never thought about before. It's a tangled ball of string. So we can discard this idea of it being a straight line. We can let go of that dysfunctional belief and lean into wayfinding. And that's why design thinking is so useful, because we're going to build our way forward. And all we need to focus on is the next step. Not the end goal per se, but hey, how do I make the decision on that first hop? So that's an interesting question. And that's actually why we have a picture of a compass right here. Because your compass can help you figure out how you're going to make that next step, given that the terrain is unknown and the end is also unknown. So in our classes, we talk a lot about calibrating our compass. And what we're talking about there is connecting some dots for meaning. The dots of who you are, what you believe, and what you do. And it turns out positive psychologists and folks who study resilience and engagement and job satisfaction have all learned that as you understand how these things relate to each other, how they're aligned, how they're coherent, it increases your ability to make meaning, to really understand why do you do what you do and why might you continue doing it. And so in our class, we build a compass. We talk about who are we? What's our identity? What are those narratives that we've heard? The narratives that we've heard growing up, the narratives that society is imposing on us based on our identity, based on our gender, our racial profile, all of the different things that make up who we are. And we reflect on how is that influencing how we might think about designing our lives. We talk about what are our views of work. We have a reflection called the work view. And we ask some questions about why do you work? Why would anyone work? What makes good work? What does community have to do with it? What does personal growth have to do with it? What does money have to do with it? And we ask our students to write up about a half a page, just getting those thoughts out of their head and onto paper, crystallizing them so they can think about them more clearly. And then we ask them some small questions about the meaning of life. What's life for? What is the purpose of life? What makes a good life? What about good and evil? What about higher power? And we ask them to write a half page on that too. And then we ask them to look at all of those things in concert and to consider, hey, does one of these inform the other? Does one empower the other? Do they clash? Where are there opportunities to make them more coherent and to understand better your own compass? Because these things can form sort of a true north to help you make the decision on each of those hops, even if you don't know where the end goal is going to lead you. Now, most of our students also, or many of our students, haven't yet worked for money and are just starting their college experience. So in that case, we also ask them to write a college view. This is a document about what's college for? Why go to college? What would make my college experience a successful one? And we ask them to look at that, again, in connection with these other things and to consider, hey, how am I going to make my decisions about how I engage here at college? So we invite you to think about these things together. You and your kids, your family can sit down and create a true north for yourself. Because as you are going through this process, we don't know what the end is going to hold. In fact, we don't even know if we're going to be on campus ever again. I mean, I haven't been on campus since March. And so really thinking about how can we connect these dots to increase meaning making and increase coherence so that we can thrive and flourish wherever we are is important. Now, I know all of you are with me, right? I have kids, you have kids. We're thinking, hey, we really do want our kids to thrive and to flourish. And then in the back of our minds, some of us type A parents are also thinking, yeah, but what about success? I want them to be successful. And in that case, we might want to talk to Dave about cracking the success code of college and making it work for you.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. So let's keep that going. So how do you crack the college success code and make it work for you, make it work for your son or daughter? Well, okay. So it turns out the Gallup-Purdue research project, this has been researched to death. And we actually now know what creates success in college. The Gallup-Purdue Index, a massive study, 30,000 college graduates in the US, measuring the degree to which they were engaged in their work, thriving in their purpose, social, financial well-being, community. You correlate people who are thriving after college with what happened during college, what seems to help have college experience create a thriving human being. There are 6 primary outcomes of this research. They are the big 6. You can all read just fine. A professor who made them excited about what they were learning, professors who cared about them as a person, a mentor who encouraged them to pursue their goals, their dreams, their coherent life that Kathy was just describing, a chance to work on a long-term project, not just crank out papers and get grades, a job or internship where they applied what they were learning and saw a correlation between the outside world and the inside of the academy, and were involved in extracurricular activities, not just getting grades. Now, you take that list of 6, I think you can boil it down to, frankly, the big 2. 2 things. Connect with a teacher or mentor along the way that cared about them and started to correlate what they're learning with their life plans, and do real stuff. Actually connect what they're learning with what is happening in the world, both thoughtfully and behaviorally. If you do those 2 things, your chance of succeeding at college, by the way, neither of which has to do with being at a top school, your chance of succeeding in life goes way the heck up. Oh, it's just like the challenge success people said, it's all about engagement. Again, what you do in college is way more important than where you go. Now, how do you do that? Okay, so, when Bill and I, kind of went on the road and started talking about this book thing, we were about to go on TV in Canada. At the 6 in the morning, early live news show, when I think, 2 boa constrictors and a pigeon are probably watching television. And they got behind, and the assistant producer comes to me and he says, hey, Dave, we're behind. Your 7-minute interview is now 3. We need you to have the book in a sentence. And I said, dude, we're Stanford instructors. We are not, I in particular, as Kathy will tell you, I'm not renowned for short answers to complex questions. This is a 45-minute presentation. And he goes, well, then you're off the air. I go, give me a minute, And it wasn't 1 sentence, but it's only 10 words. And here it is. The keep it simple system is get curious, talk to people, try stuff, tell your story. And by the way, the importance of prototyping and the process that Kathy taught you, which is a semester course in design in about 5 minutes a little while ago, talk to people and try stuff are both prototypes. That tells you, and half the 4 steps are about prototyping. That's where it's at. What we're saying is you get curious about something and go talk to people about what they're doing in life. What's it like for you along the way? Hey, could I watch? Could I try something? Could I do a little project with you? Could I just ride along? And then if I'm learning while I'm doing those things and jotting in my journal, gosh, it was so interesting. I talked to Kathy about what is it like to teach an educator as opposed to teach a student. What's that like for you? And then so when I tell my story isn't, hey, what'd you do last night? Oh, I binge watched Game of Thrones for the 14th time. What'd you do? That's not an interesting story. But hey, I was talking to the managing director of the Life Design Lab. She had this really interesting insight. Oh, that's an interesting story. If you keep doing that, all you're really doing is learning the skill of giving your curiosity legs. And the process is frankly, just repeat that process. Keep going, keep going, keep going until you get engaged and find something you really want to do with yourself. That's designing your life. And relative to how and where I want to go to college and how I want to spend those years, that's designing your college experience. That's even designing your high school experience. So it can be that simple. If all you get from this presentation is these 10 words, pretty much you're home free. Okay, get curious. Let me drill into this a little bit. So first of all, to curate your curiosity, you need to learn how to pursue latent wonderfulness. Latent wonderfulness means, look, everything is interesting if you just understood it from the point of view of the people that think it's really cool. So pretend you're one of those people and go find out about it. So here's an exercise you can do. And this is an exercise that works, frankly, for people of any age. There's a variation on this we do actually at the Stanford Museum, in one of our courses, and it looks like this. Go find something interesting, i.e. anything at all. Look at it from all sides. The kids looking at a rock near the tide pools, really look at it and then suddenly notice something you didn't see at first. Ooh, look at that. There's a barnacle under here. Now, sketch it. Sketch that thing you did not first notice. Now, while you're drawing, keep looking at it. You got to keep referencing it, and while you're drawing the thing you noticed second, notice something else you didn't see. And then jot that down. Just do it. Spend no more than 10 minutes doing it. Come back and talk to your group or talk to mom and dad, whatever it might be. Let me give an example. Let's say you walk outside and you're walking down the path and you see these palm fronds lying on the ground. Okay, I'm going to sketch that. So I look at it for a minute, and what do I notice that I didn't see at first? Oh, I noticed these like pod things, these little, look like dried tortillas or something. I don't know what they are. What the heck is that? So I'm going to draw that. I'm drawing that. And while I'm drawing that, I'm kind of going, wait a minute. What's going on to the green palm fronds that haven't fallen on the ground yet? They look different than the brown ones on the ground. All the green ones are flat and wide open. The brown ones fold up. Why do they fold up when they fall down and die? What's up with that anyway? That's the thing I noticed while I was drawing the little pod thing. Okay, that's literally what getting curious is about. The way you pursue latent wonderfulness is, you don't just look at something, you're always looking for something. So the question, what do you see that you didn't notice at first? You're looking for that. This is the way to never be bored, because being interested is always interesting. Being interested, causing you to be interesting, is a critical component of managing the overwhelm, certainly of college and even of life. So we tell our students all the time in our Designing Your Stanford class, you're not here to do everything. Learn how to get more out of things, not just cram more into things. We have a Ritalin pandemic. We have a bunch of kids on meth because they're trying to stay up 24 hours a day for 4 years and cram everything in. That's crazy. We train you out of that in the Design Your Stanford course, so you learn how to get more out of life. Now, that's what you can do with curiosity. Hey, teachers, we got a bunch of teachers on the call tonight, I'm told. What could you do to make this thing better? Well, you leverage those two big things I said in the Gallup, analysis, Gallup-Purdue study, by helping students curate their curiosity and diminishing their dysfunctional beliefs. And how do you do that? There's one thing, just one thing you could do that's so powerful. Ask better questions. Remember I said almost all the dysfunctional beliefs start with some question that frames a bunch of stuff up, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And what are you going to major in? And what school do you want to get into? All those questions are starting with an answer. Give you an example. Rather than, hey, what do you want to do with your life, sixth grader? who's 12 years old. By the way, we do know that most people who figure out what they want to do with their adult life figured it out between 28 and 32 years old. When you're a 22-year Stanford senior, you're just getting started. So stop asking these questions. You could ask instead, hey, what do you enjoy learning or trying? Who have you met whose life seems interesting to you? What is going on in the world that upsets you? What grabs your attention? Tell me about something you finally figured out after lots of tries. Yeah, let's have a little grit while we're at it. Any of those questions beats the heck out of what do you want to do with your life? Instead of what do you want to major in, which people are asking fifth graders. Please, people, come on. How about what do you want out of college other than a degree? What are you hearing from happy and unhappy collegians? What's the difference? How are you anticipating changing your mind while in college? If you want to make an assumption in your question, how about make an assumption that opens people to flexibility rather than closes them down to having to have a pre-known answer? We know you're going to change your mind while in your college. Isn't that what you're there for? How do you think you might do that? Where do you think you might bump into somebody that will help you change your mind? What would be a lovely surprise for you between 18 and 22? I often stand in front of about 350 inbound Stanford MBA students and the #1 business program in the country. Theoretically, these are the most focused, strategically minded young business, carnivores ready to go out and kill or be killed that you've ever met. And you ask them what they really want. What they really want is to find that thing they didn't even know they were looking for. During this 2 years, I want to be surprised by joy. So how does having an incredibly focused goal that you never think about anything but allow you to be surprised by joy? Let's teach people to be good at curiosity. What myths are you testing out lately? What ideas do you have that you're pretty sure might not actually be true? And how are you testing whether or not they really are? Because again, you're going to change your mind constantly as you grow, aren't you? Now, so again, you curate your curiosity by asking better questions, by being that teacher they connect to. By the way, that whole thing about connecting to a professor or a mentor, a grown-up that cares about your life, that works in grade school, junior high, high school, college, and the rest of your life. So start it now. And you could broker them into the world. That second thing you can do is have an experience of the outside world that correlates to what I'm learning. So, hey, teachers, connect people to projects, connect people to visits, to drive-bys, to field trips. Find a way to do stuff, not just talk about stuff. Now, mom and dad, what can you do? Well, first of all, you can do everything a teacher can do and more, because you got them all the time. And all the studies make clear who's the most influential person on the planet? Mom and dad. Craft your success narrative for both getting into, going to, and leveraging the college experience. Many of you are already thinking about college. Many of you are talking about college. If I ask your kids what you believe about college, they already know whether you've said it or not. So the way you craft what success means is incredibly important. There's an exercise we do in the Designing Your Stanford course. This is the college view that Kathy was talking about earlier. Now, the 3 classical answers to the question, why go to college at all, which is a question that's getting really serious evaluation right now and deserves to, is I'm going there, the educator will tell you, for the life of the mind. I'm going there for the true baccalaureate education. I'm going there in the Western tradition, coming out of the school of Aristotle and Plato and Socrates. I'm learning how to think. I'm here to develop the life of the mind. That's the liberal education, not liberal like blue versus red, liberal as in what it means to be a liberal thinker. I'm here now, most popularly, to get ready to go make some money. I'm ready to launch myself into the world and get career prepared. Or I'm here to find myself. I'm here to grow into an adult. This is my first chance to be away from my parents and actually become myself. And the studential experience is a way that that's really going to facilitate that for me. Now, these 3 things are complementary, but it could be a mix, but nonetheless, they're really different. And we do this little exercise. We take a room full of freshmen and we say, first-year students, and say, hey, if you could only pick one of these, an unreasonable thing, but nonetheless, which would it be? All of those of you who are here for the life of the mind, you go over in that corner, and you guys who are here for career readiness, you go over in that corner, and those of you who want to just become your true selves, find your authentic identity, you go over here. Okay, everybody go. And they all mill around and off they go. And sure enough, 3 different groups of a variety of sizes, depending on the semester, will appear. And then we'll go talk to them about why they picked that, and it's kind of interesting. And then we do this little thing. We say, now here's a deal. Assume the wall behind me in this classroom, of course we'd have to do it online now, was actually a one-way mirror, and all your parents are behind it. And some of your parents are looking at the place you went and going, oh no, Susie, no, go over there, go over there. They wish you had gone to a different place. If you think your parents had wished you'd gone to a different place, please go there now. And then a bunch of the kids will move, not all. One time, Bill and I did this years ago, and a whole bunch of students left career readiness, which they had picked, and went over to becoming you, where their parents would have wanted them to be happy. And we watched this and we're like, that's really weird. That doesn't make any sense at all. So we went over and said, I think you misunderstood. We wanted you to go where your parents would prefer you to be. And they'll go, yeah. That's what we did. So you want to get career ready and your parents are unhappy about that. They want you just to become yourself. Did I hear that right? And you're at Stanford, you're paying like 60 grand, and it's got $250,000, if you're paying retail. And they go, right. And we go, how's that work? And here's what they told us. And I go, what are your parents telling you? And literally one girl kind of goes, oh, it's the same thing over and over again. I go, what do they say? They go, oh, honey, we don't really care what happens. We just want you to be happy. And then all the kids in that group go, oh, I hate it when they say that. You hate it that your parents want to be happy? They go, I go, look, we already want to be happy. We don't need you to want us to be happy too. And now I've got no help at all. So just like you're supposed to figure it out for yourself. I have no idea how to be happy. And if I don't make myself happy, my parents are completely disappointed. And they haven't got the faintest idea what they want from me. It's so burdensome. It makes me crazy. So literally that's the kind of thing that can go on. Now, Kathy, I believe you also have a favorite story about this particular exercise we do. Do you want to share that now?
Sure. So I had the opposite, right? I had a student who came in and said, I'm really interested. This person was really interested in mental health, as it turned out. And she said, but I can't study that. And I said, why not? And she said, well, because I'm here to get ready for a career. And I've been told under no uncertain terms that I will be studying CS. My parents told me that they will pay for school if I study computer science.
Right. You can go anywhere you want as long as you study computer science.
As long as you study computer science. Because the parents really were interested in her being successful. And in their mind, that meant financial security. In their mind, that meant, well, that would be computer science. That's the safest route. So really interesting to note that your kids know what you think. Yeah. They know it if you tell them in kind of small ways, and they certainly know it if you tell them, I'm not going to pay for school unless you do this one thing. But they know.
So the point being, you do want to intentionally craft the success narrative. And for most of you, the college thing is a huge thing. And so you just want to be in front of that and have it come out in ways that you hope will in fact be as generative for your student as it possibly can be. Okay, so moving on now, what else can you do? Well, you can find the Goldilocks spot. Not too hot, not too cold. In between proscriptive and prescriptive, like under no circumstances should you, and hey, what you really need to do is, and in between that is what we call the constructive or the generative, which is giving them some, Legos of life, whether it's crayons or Legos or climbing walls, ways you can be a constructive collaborator with them to find their own way. Wayfinding is ultimately rooted in the individual, not in the right answer. At least that's our experience as designers. So that's really more than enough to chew on. And perhaps that has generated some questions. So I know we really love PowerPoint, but I'm actually going to stop that now. And maybe we just have a conversation.
Yeah.
And
so there have been some questions coming in, Dave.
Great.
And one of the first one that came in was this one from Anne, who asked, okay, what's a good way to open up a conversation with your high school junior when you ask her about her interests related to college research and she says, I don't know?
Do you want to take that, Kate?
Well, I think you really covered it, actually. The asking good questions is a really powerful spot to start, because this hey, what do you want to do for your college research has buried in it a whole bunch of really interesting assumptions, right? It's like, hey,
Right.
she wants to do college research at all. She's thinking about that right now, which may or may not be the case as a junior, or that the research interest that she has today is the research interest that she might have when she goes to college. So
Right.
all of that is really interesting to unpack. And you might start then with some of those kinds of questions that Dave was just suggesting. What are you curious about right now? What are the things in the world that you think need doing? The things that concern you.
And this brings up for me, I've got a huge bias against exclusive formed questions or hyperboles. Like, you could even reframe this. Like, well, hey, if you had a year free, you had a gap year between high school and college, you could do anything you wanted to do. What's the one thing you really would love to do? That sounds like a really cool question, except it's horrible. I don't know. Hey, if you had, 6 months free with an unlimited budget, what are 3 or 4 things that might be worth checking out to see if you'd actually want to do that? That's a much lower bar to get over. And I get a list and say, gee, well, honey, actually, your dad and I are actually thinking about, maybe giving you a year between high school and college. We're actually thinking about funding a gap year. What if we had made a project where you kind of go check these 3 ideas out well enough to say, if you came up with some fun ideas about how you'd sort of investigate, climate change or whatever it might be, maybe we'll actually do that. Would that be something you'd like? You sneak up on it, right? So give people a chance, but you start at the end. Well, you got to do research in college. What do you want research on? I don't know. And by the way, I don't even know what research is. I just wrote an essay. What do you mean? I don't know what research is. Anyway, okay. Let's try another one.
Yeah. So how about this? I really like this question from Hoon, actually, that says, what might be a good approach to a child who's anxious of any failure or of being behind in the wheel of life?
Well, we've done whole seminars on, we talk about failure immunity all the time. The reason for Bill and I call it the set the bar low and clear it methodology, which is prototype. The necessary act of the goal of a design prototype is to learn something. We know we don't know what we're doing. Let's go try it and see if we can't learn something. The goal of a late stage engineering prototype is to prove you're right. Well, let's go to run the prototype on this thing before we, put passengers in the plane and kill everybody. And if it doesn't work, oh man, we got to go back to the drawing board. And that's still technically a prototype, but it's a late stage engineering prototype. You're testing that you think you're done and you're right, as opposed to like, hey, I wonder, would people like rolling a piece of plastic around on the desk instead of typing? I don't know. Let's go give them a piece of plastic and try it. Let's go learn something. So that's, they don't like square things. They like round things. That's a whole different experience. So with the whole thing with these kids, what you want to do is you want to give them a chance to try a bunch of stuff where you're not even trying to succeed, you're just trying to learn. And in so doing, you reposition failure entirely. Now, real failure matters, and particularly with at-risk kids or under-resourced people. You're the first one coming out to college from your inner city immigrant family. That's a whole nother story. So you got to be culturally sensitive to what failure means. But the best way to have people not fear failure is give them lots of things where failing didn't matter.
I would double down on that. I think
It's huge.
The critical thing is kind of in that define space of, hey, let's make the question so small that really anything that happens is interesting, but not heartbreaking or not going to cause you a feeling of shame or failure. So you can scope those prototypes to come up with ideas that are really, really little to try. And I think that's some of the magic. That's setting the bar low, like really low. We're talking low.
Right.
Things where you're like, oh, anybody can do that. Yeah. And they will, and then they'll learn something when they do it. So I think that's a good place to start. Here's one from Christine that is,
okay.
Any suggestions about how to become more engaged during COVID? And actually, Dave, I'm gonna jump off here because I just ran into this with my daughter, and then I think you'll come up with much better ideas after this. So I actually was just in this conversation. Sorry, I'm setting the bar low. Set the bar low. No, I actually was just having this conversation with my daughter because she's, we're all on Zoom all day long, and she's been watching some YouTube, and it was over the break, and she's, Mom, I'm sick of being on the computer. We can't go anywhere. There's nothing to do. I'm so bored. I just find myself watching YouTube all day.
Right.
And I said, yeah, what are you watching on YouTube? And she said, I don't know, I'm watching like cooking things, and I'm watching some like art stuff. And I said, great. Why don't you choose one of those things and then just try to do it? She's like, well, like, what do you mean? Like just one of the recipes? I was like, yeah. Why don't you just try to just do one of them? Like you can pick anything. You can like pick underwater basket weaving, whatever it is. And she said, yeah, all right. And I said, you could just pick like for like a theme for the week of something you want to just like try some stuff. And so she's like, all right. And so she ended up making a bunch of new dinners for the family. And this is my 13-year-old. She's really into cooking. And like some of them are keepers. Some of them were terrible. Like, I'm not sorry, Marianne, you're probably watching this, but like one of them was not that good. And she was like, that wasn't that good. And that was great because we learned something. Like the family doesn't really love cantaloupe and pancetta, turns out. Right. But
well, and you can make it
so
social.
cool.
So she's on like okay, are your friends bored to tears? Yes. What are they doing? Watching YouTube. Okay. Poll your 4 best friends. What are their top 6 topics for YouTube? Cat video, whatever, and then you take the top 3 that are shared by more than 2 people and say, okay, we're all going to go pick a list and we're going to watch the same thing. We're all going to make the cake, or we're all going to do the cat trick training or whatever it is, and then we're going to compare notes and find out what worked and what didn't. Now suddenly it's a conversation. Now it's a team. And it's incredibly easy to do. The other thing about COVID and online is some stuff got worse and a lot of stuff got better. A lot of stuff got easier. The talk to people just got way easier because everybody's lonely. Everybody's stuck at home. Everybody's looking at this darn screen, and they can get a conversation going. We bring mentors, to come in and tell their story at our classes. Well, Bill has been trying to get Johnny Ive, the legendary lead designer at Stanford, to come talk to our students forever. And Johnny's always just too damn busy. But, first quarter we're teaching online, Bill calls Johnny, goes, sure, I can go. I mean, I get 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I just click a URL and I'm there. Boom. And he's lonely. So, let's say you're curious about, this climate change or, the new roundabout there's a new roundabout where I live, and they put like designs in the concrete. I didn't even put designs in concrete. The concrete was just like gray, what's up with designs well, go check that out. And let's go find somebody who's a concrete designer, and you can find them on LinkedIn, and you could talk about how did you become a concrete designer? You're doing art in concrete. Well, yeah, I make driveways. I make a living on driveways, but I'm really an artist. Like, whoa, how's that happen? I mean, you just start vertically following these things down. This curate your curiosity. So it's if you're bored, it's your own damn fault. Sorry. Don't mean to.
Well, I think I think that's an interesting remark, Dave. Given this next question from Rajiv, which said, "Do you think parents need to wayfind more, or at least as much, about as their kids who are about to go to college?"
So Bill and we write this book, and then the Stanford Alumni Association comes to us and goes, would you guys be willing to talk to the alumni too? It turns out the grown-ups have the same questions that the students do. We go, of course they do, because you don't want to grow up, you want to keep growing. And we're going to continue to wayfind no matter what you do. And they said, yeah, we'd love it if you would come talk to some alumni. I go, yeah, we're happy to do that. They go, so we have a 16-city year-long tour planned for you to talk to 20,000 people. Like, oh, that's what you meant, So for a year, Bill and I, we played at packed houses of alumni all across the world. Yeah, I think absolutely. We're all wayfinding. Wayfinding isn't a strategy. It's a necessary reality for a certain kind of problem, right? I'm 67 years old. A small support group I formed as a college undergraduate at Stanford in 1973, known as TD3, Tom and 3 Daves. I'm the founding Dave. There were 4 Daves, it was TD4. One of the Daves never came, we kicked him out. So we got 3 remaining Daves and Tom. And they're all going through stuff. I just lost my wife died 5 weeks ago. I'm completely upside down because we were fabulously in love with each other. And now what do I do? She died 15 years too soon. That was not okay. Damn it. That was not in the program. And then, Tom just sold his company prematurely, made a bunch of money. And now, whoa, what do I do with Tom? So we're all inventing, we're wayfinding. Nobody knows how to do this stuff. Now, I can tell you how to buy the most efficient hybrid car. I can tell you, how to select the most affectionate dog breed that doesn't shed. I mean, those are engineering problems I can solve, but this life stuff, it never stops. So yeah, keep wayfinding. And
I
if
think
you were
that-
able to share your wayfinding experiences, including the anxiety about them with your children and how you're trying stuff and what you're curious about and who you just talked to and what your story is that you have to tell, now you're modeling being a life designer, not just a parent who's worried about their child, and or concern or love their child. Again, these parents I just want you to be happy, honey. I mean, they know they're loved, but all they get out of that is burden. So if you can live out loud and not pretend you've got it all together, unless you're one of the people. My guess is most of the people on this call don't have it all together. If they have it all together, they don't need the book. They've got it
We're all humans. I think even if you have it together for a second, right, then life changes. I feel like if you had a goal January last year and you're like, it's all lined up. I've got my, my ducks in a row. Then all of a sudden, I mean, who could have, I'm not actually at Stanford, I'm in my garage, this is a different reality. So I think everybody needs to wayfind. And what I really like about what Dave just said is if you wayfind as a parent, if you show your child being curious, trying things, screwing up, and then admitting it and figuring out what to do about that. Wow, that didn't work out at all. I tried to bake that cake and it was flat.
Yeah.
Right. That really helps them and then feel like, oh, I can do the same. I'll make a flat cake too, and I'll survive.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're doing. And, of course we need to create some structure for our kids. We don't want them to feel like it's just chaos.
No.
But I think there is, especially as they're becoming emerging adults, they already know a lot of things that maybe we don't even want them to know. And so when they see us, hey, I'm wrestling with what am I going to do next? Right? Do I do this or do I do that? What is my decision-making process? And I talk through that with my kids. Then they have those tools now. So yeah, plus it's kind of fun. The thing about my daughter making these new recipes, I was like, hey, I can, why don't I make some new recipes too? There's some excitement about that and some learning.
Somebody asked about college the college admission question?
Yeah, college admissions.
Yeah. What changes would I like to see in the college admission process that would support these thoughts and ideas in the younger years? The college process does not seem to align with it. The process seems to be increasingly headed in the wrong direction. I'm not sure it's increasingly headed in the wrong direction. I think it's actually starting to arc the other way. It's incredibly difficult. And I have great sympathy for my admissions colleagues and frankly can't imagine doing that job. It's incredibly hard. But, for instance, some schools are throwing out SATs. They just don't tell you, they're so racially biased and what have you, we're done with them. I think Stanford's gone there yet, but some people are throwing out the standardization stuff because it's not that standardized. And I think it's probably going more to interviews and more to essays, but even that still has a certain bias in it. Frankly, Kathy and her team have been in this incredible process of massively overhauling our curriculum and our pedagogy to make sure that it really is doing diversity and inclusion, which is an aspect of speaking to human beings like who they actually are, not who your bias predisposes them to be. So that's kind of like what's going on at admissions. Kathy, you got any thoughts on this question? I mean, if you had a magic wand in the admissions department, what would you do with it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that one of the things I would do is I would throw out a bunch of things like the SAT and AP classes, because those are essentially biased towards anybody who has a lot of resource. The next thing I would do is I would reassure all of the parents just about all the stuff that Challenge Success has found. Right? It doesn't matter what school you go to. It matters how you go there. Now, I'm not going to lie. Having the big red S on your resume does open some doors in the Bay Area. Right?
Sure.
It's kind of a mark of status. And I think that's where we've kind of fallen down. This idea that now, we have to get into these best schools, quote unquote, because there's some status associated with that that's going to lead to some great success in the future. And I think it all tracks back, frankly, to the idea of what success is and what is enough. And so, in some ways, I almost feel like college admissions should just throw the pile up in the air, like all the ones that land in the circle, right? We'll take those because there's so many qualified and amazing applicants. And assuming that they really engage when they get here on campus, they're going to do just fine.
You know, if I could wave my man, what I actually do is really have all the families actually care about finding an institution, including a form, maybe it's 2 years and then out, you know, doesn't have to be a resident school, that really fits my kid. And rather than pursues this top list or the, you know, the most expensive or the least expensive, whatever it is, if the criteria really were where I fit, I think we'd have a significantly smaller admissions problem than we currently do. And that's something. Now, another part of that would have to do, like, how do we prepare? So there's a question. So many kids may be intelligent, but are missing the soft skills, communication, grit, how to be, you know, schedule management, that are needed for success in life and college. What schools seem to be assuming about how kids will absorb from their family or environment? What are any thoughts? Or what are the whole soft skill development thing? Kathy, why don't you talk about, we actually, there's a slide we do to reframe what education is for students in the Designing Your Stanford class. And we talk about what is school. And it starts with the required major classes in your major. Then there's the elective classes you take beyond that. Then there's the formal extracurricular clubs you join and can put in your resume. And then EE, everything else. And the reality is, when you look at actually what kids are doing and jamming their transcripts, trying to triple major in things, you know, it's almost all required courses and a little bit more, and that's it, we're done, which is ridiculous. And so we redraw that and we say for the designed student, not the what's actually called the ballistic student at Stanford, the person shot from a gun trying to get their degree and go make a bunch of money. You know, if you're not a ballistic student, you're really a design student. You actually, those four things, it's all the same. They're all engagement. Staying up all night and arguing about whether or not God exists in the dorm stairway is just as legitimate as getting into that entrepreneurship internship for the summer. And so we teach the students that everything is an engagement and plan them all as a point of value. So if you're a parent and you're looking at, oh, I notice school, particularly junior high or high school, is organized around certain outcomes. They're not organized around forming a human being. They're organized around teaching stuff. So the stuff they don't teach, do other things, other projects, other activities, other involvements, you know.
Better than that, don't do anything. Like, read Manoush Zamrode's Bored and Brilliant. Like, what she talks about is, like, don't schedule. Send your kid outside and be like, go figure out something to do out there. Good luck. Come back, tell me something, right? I mean, let your kid ride the bus. Make your kid ride the bus on purpose. To somewhere, to the mall, you know, I mean, whatever it is, have them go out and do things that aren't organized by adults, that are organized by them, that will push their boundaries a little bit. You can track them anywhere you want. You got them on, you know, you got their phone, right? So you can, I mean, you can even see everywhere they went. If you don't want to think back to the days when we were kids and, like, we were out in the creek bed, you know, our parents had no idea. The guy fell off the rope spring, broke his arm. We had to, like, carry him back to his house. You know, like, nobody asked us, like, what are you doing out there? Yeah. Right. I mean, I kind of feel like the old days, but in all honesty, like, consider the idea of how we develop those the communication, grit, scheduling. We develop that by not having somebody else do that for us. Yeah. And unfortunately, what we've created is a system that really sort of pushes kids through a funnel where they execute some lovely things that we've set up for them so that they can check all the boxes on that college admissions form to show that they maxed out the number of credits they could take in computer science, for example. Yeah. So, yeah.
The technical term is doing school. So Denise Pope, the founder of Challenge Success, who is, you know, a senior lecturer at Stanford in the School of Education, got her PhD there. Wonderful woman. Did her PhD dissertation on doing school. She followed a bunch of, you know, public school, college prep-minded kids around for a year to find out what do they actually do in high school. And what they do is they totally game the system. They become brilliant at gaming the system of getting into college, which has nothing to do with learning anything. So the Challenge Success is to, and they're now, I mean, a couple of hundred, you know, upwards of 1 million kids go into junior highs or high schools that have adopted challenge success principles. And wait a minute, the best way to help kids be able to think better is assign less homework. Oh, who knew? The amount of homework you get has almost no correlation to academic success, that kind of stuff. So you really do want to, you got to buck the system a little bit. The system's not your friend right now for the most part.
Yeah.
Now here's a good, so Fajit says, how do we cope with too many things are interesting to me? This is not the bored kid. This is, I'm over interested, you know, and I want to do so many more things than just one thing, and I have limited time to do them all. What do I do? How do I handle having my kid have focus? Okay, this is FOMO time. So my favorite thing. So
yeah, I know.
So,
I'm just laughing. Keep going.
here we go. So I mean, we all, and certainly our kids have FOMO, fear of missing. Oh, I want to do that too. Oh, I want to do that too. And trust me, a Stanford freshman is drowning in FOMO. So one thing we do is we actually make them realize it's much worse than you think. In fact, there's so many things you could do. Of course you have FOMO. Are you kidding? The world is full of all this interesting stuff. Like, look at that go by, look at that go by, look at that go by. All that, seeing something that's interesting I haven't got time to do means is you're not asleep. If you haven't got FOMO, you're not paying attention. So of course you have FOMO. In fact, you're overwhelmed with FOMO. What does that mean? That means, oh my God, the world is so interesting. The world is so big. Wow. Oh, I could never possibly do everything I want to do. So it's not about do it all. Do it all is like, duh, there's no way you can do it all. What you could do is something interesting. So maybe what I really want to do is put enough energy into something that I actually get something out of it, rather than just ping, 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 and barely taste 1 spoon's worth of all 75 flavors before the store closes, which is incredibly ungratifying. So you do have to teach kids that you move from FOMO to JOMO. The joy of missing out is I'm really having a good time focusing on this one thing. And of course that's interesting. What else would you expect? The world's so big. It's fascinating. I love being here. If I'm lucky, I might get to like 6 things out of the 75,000 I might find interesting. So you got to reframe the whole thing.
And then, you know, if you're really faced with a couple different things that you're like, hey, these all look good. I've boiled the ocean down to 3. Well, this is where that compass thing comes in. It's like, well, which of these is aligned with who I want to become? Right? There's a great talk by a woman, Ruth Chang, a philosopher at Rutgers, and she talks about hard choices. Right? 2 things are on a par. You can't decide. She's like, of course, that's a hard choice because they're equally good.
Yeah.
So at that point, you have the opportunity to really exercise your becoming, your normative power of judgment, to become someone who is the kind of person who would do thing X rather than thing Y.
Right.
And so I think that's the kind of conversation. It's not like, oh, how do you balance all that? Or should you focus, right? Or, hey, maybe that actually is an interesting question. Is like, why should I focus? Like, do I need to focus for some reason? Is it like something that I've got to like accomplish? But at the end of the day, you can decide to have a conversation about, hey, what's the there? What would you get out of doing this? And what would you get out of doing that? And then who would that make you become?
And let me finish with real quickly. And there doesn't need to be a superior criteria. So Bill, my favorite students, I'm going to call her Bernice, brilliant young woman, came through, had this super plan. I'm interested in these 4 different careers, and I'm going to prototype each one for 18 months. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this, and she did exactly what she had in mind. She nailed it. She did the impact investing thing, and then did the startup thing, and then did the Techstars thing over there, and then did the public sector thing. I mean, she was killing it, and she calls us. I mean, she's 8 years out of college. She calls us back and kind of goes, it didn't work. What do you mean it didn't work? Well, I mean, I tried them all and they were all fine. They were all great, but I still don't know what I want to do. And I go, Bernice, guess what you just learned? You are simply interested in everything. They all work fine. What you really wanted was that one of them walked up and said, I'm it, and just gave you this big fat wet kiss right on the lips and said, I'm your life. Don't you love me to death? And that didn't happen because you are so adaptable. You are so flexible. Frankly, you could do anything and enjoy it. So here's the deal. Just pick. Just pick. Pick on geography. Pick on where your partner wants to be. Pick on you like the color of the building. I mean, it doesn't matter. You're fine. You're an incredibly adaptable person. Get over it. You don't have a singular passion. You can be passionate about anything you want to be. She goes, so that's like a feature. I go, it's not a bug, it's a feature. It's okay. You don't have to be right You just have to be thriving. That's all we're asking. And we're making it up as we go along. Just keep making it up. I think we're done.
I think we got 2 minutes left. Do you want to leave them with any last? Yeah, that's a great aha ending.
Or
right
Claire,
there.
actually, I think we have like a minute. See anything in here? Oh, that's a great aha ending. Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
I think
Great.
we
So,
say.
Clara, it's up to you.
There we go.
Get us out of here.
So on behalf of Common Ground, I want to thank both Dave and Kathy for joining us today. This is such timely advice because I have a child who's just at the beginning stages of starting to think about college. And thank you so much for the good questions that you've posed today so that I can really help them brainstorm what it is they want to take out of college and life, and to test those ideas about myths and what they think they want to do, and to encourage them to seek mentors. I mean, it sounds like that it's a good path to success. And if I can just get a couple of those things in, I think we're on our way. Again, the book that Dave has written, Designing Your Life with Bill Burnett, is available through Books Inc. And the link is on our website, the Common Ground website. And it's also here in the chat. So if anyone wants to click on it, you can click on it to buy his book. We have also recorded this evening's event, and we'll be making it available on our website for our members. Please go to our website, commongroundspeakerseries.org, to sign up if you want to be added to our list for future events. And please don't forget to join us on Tuesday, February 9th at 7 p.m. to hear Colin Seal discuss the topic, Future Ready Kids, Raising the Bar on Critical Thinking. Thank you so much and have a great night.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.